Hi 12s, we're going to go through a process exemplar for your upcoming text intervention block exam. So your block exam is in week 9, which means you've got weeks 7 and 8 to go through your text intervention genre and deconstruct an exemplar, and then you've got some time to plan and draft in preparation for your exam. So we're going to have a look at some student work from 2016. Your task is that you're going to compose a narrative intervention under exam conditions that focuses on a character from the novel. Your task is to identify one of the characters from the novel and to tell events from their perspective while still mirroring the narrative style of Cloud Street and Tim Winton's writing. So your narrative must add to the plot of the novel by giving the reader more information about characters or events. So the event that we're going to look at is from Sam Pickles and explore a bit more detail about his perspective on that and adding some extra detail than what's given in the novel. So for your text intervention, we are looking for a title that is related and value adds to your intervention. A tip is to maybe perhaps write your intervention first and then have a look at some wording that has come up in your intervention that you can use as something that will add value. It might be a saying or a couple of words that you piece together that you get a bit of inspiration from your writing from. In terms of the structure, you need to make sure that you have an orientation that then has some rising action or a complication that's introduced that leads to the climax, and then you have your resolution at the end, and all of that should be sequenced and formatted in a logical order that all links and flows. We recommend that your intervention remains in one location and only exploring one event. That way you can use a lot of descriptive language to really show, not tell, what's happening. Whereas if you move from one location to another, we find it is trying to add too much information in the little amount of words that you have. You should be referencing previous events from the novel and perhaps almost at times maybe hinting at things that may happen in the future, like building up to that. Or you should also develop your character throughout your intervention. That's the whole point of this, is to focus on one character and develop that character a bit more and give the readers more insight into that character. We'd like to see you making reference to some overarching themes of the novel. So for example, luck or chance was one of the themes in the novel. There's also some themes about family. In this exemplar's case, we do look at the theme of luck and chance, and it's clearly embedded throughout. You should also look at mirroring the narrative style of Winton. He's got a very unique style of writing, so you really need to study how he writes, the type of sentences he uses, the type of language he uses, how he formats his paragraphs, his dialogue, and how that all links and flows to each other. So you really need to go back and look at different sections of the novel to see how he describes particular events. You've also need to be using a lot of figurative language and some beautiful descriptions throughout. He does a really good job of using some really nice language throughout to really paint a picture in the reader's mind. And another thing that he does is also that use of colloquial language and language that's true to the Australian time period that the novel's written in. So we'll have a look at how that's done in this example. So we have a title here called The Ultimate Gamble. It's relevant and it value adds. You'll see how it links when we go through, but ultimately that's a direct link already to one of the themes from the novel. So in your orientation, you need to establish your setting and your characters straight away. So we should be able to tell which character this is focusing on and where we are within that first paragraph. So if you look at the first lines here, it directly says it here. So straight away, we know this is Sam Pickles. But it also gives us a clear setting as he sat on the lip of the bathtub, razor drawing near, closer to his throbbing throat that glistened with the river of tears pouring from his face. So we know that this is the scene where Sam Pickles is in the bathroom and he's got the razor to his throat. So the scene's established quickly and we know exactly where we are. We don't have to keep reading to know where we are. If you look at the language, it's very clear and precise. There's a good range of differing sentence structures as we read on, so look at the different lengths of the sentences for effect. Sometimes there's short sentences and sometimes there's those nice long descriptive sentences as well. There's a really nice use of figurative language and descriptive language throughout in here. But if you notice, there's also those colloquialisms like oughta or woulda, gotta. That's relevant to that character and how they speak, and it's also relevant to the narrative style of Winton. Straight away, we've also got a clear reference to the themes about luck, and that's set up pretty much straight away. We have the complication that's then introduced, and that is that Rose has walked in and caught him, and then that's built upon in a series of events that links and flows from each other. This whole intervention is set in just a single point of time, but it does reference to past events and ideas from the novel. So we've already learnt about some of Sam's father that was mentioned at the start of the novel. That's referenced back to also his relative who died and left in the house, so he's referenced to. But then we've also got some nice language that mirrors that Winton style about getting the audience to think as well about the character. We've got some rhetorical questions, which gets what gets the audience thinking here. The style and time period is very much established in this section, and we continue with that colloquial language throughout. We've also got those references to the shifty shadow throughout, and the idea of, you know, luck and making your own luck as well. That's embedded throughout the whole thing. The complication keeps getting built upon, and we have a series of events that keeps happening. We delve into Sam's thoughts as well as narration. It's not just a monologue style of just his thoughts, and it's not just telling what happened. It's a happy medium of both. We've developed his character, and again referencing those previous events from the novel, references to Dolly as well, and then using some dialogue. Notice the dialogue is set out exactly like it is in the novel. There is no use of quotation marks. Even the indented sections, or tabbing in as we'd call it, mirrors exactly how it's done. So for a new speaker, it's a new line, it's indented in, then a new paragraph again is indented in. So she's really taken attention to detail to see how that would be formatted. So if we have a look at this section here, you can see that some of it's narration up the top here, but then we may move into some dialogue here, but it's all indented, new lines for new speakers, then straight into narration again. So you really need to study the format of how Winton writes and how he sets it out so that you too can mirror that. We then start to build to the climax. So this is the highest point in your intervention, the most tension, or what it's built up to. You should be really drawing the reader in by now. They shouldn't want to put this down, and you should really make sure it's clearly explained and elaborated. Keep up that description. Again, we've got the dialogue that continues to represent Winton's style. We've got those colloquial phrases throughout. We definitely see the show not tell technique, so she's used a lot of descriptive language to help with her narration. And again, we've got those references to luck throughout. What she's also done is used actual quotes from the novel, because this is a rewrite of a section that wasn't explored in the novel. It was only very brief, and she's used exact dialogue that's from that novel in her own intervention. So you need to make sure you're not changing events and that you're only building upon them. So the climax continues here, just as the last slide. The same techniques are used throughout. The dialogue this is the section that's pretty much in the novel. If you are going to use quotes from the novel, you should be adding your own narration in with it. So you're usually just going to use some of the dialogue, not much else, maybe some of the facts of what's mentioned, but you should really try and be narrating it yourself. Once your climax is finished, you then need to have the resolution, which is initiated just at the bottom of the page here. We start to build into the resolution of what's going to happen, and just make sure your style stays consistent throughout. So in your resolution, you need to have an emotional outcome for the character. And it does not end with, it was just a dream that he had, or that, I woke up, or then he died. I mean, you can't change major events from the novel anyway, so just make sure that you are considering this as a section of the novel that needs to build on to the next chapter as well. Again, look at your sentence structure, those short sentences for effect, but then also those longer sentences for those detailed descriptions. And again, tie in your themes throughout. So that idea of luck has been brought throughout this intervention. So just to recap, she had a title that related and value added. So hers was about that gamble and that tie to luck. She followed the structure of having an orientation, rising action, or a complication as we might call it, the climax and a resolution. She stayed in the one location and just explored one event. She referenced previous events from the novel, so different characters or different ideas of that character that had previously been explored, and then she used them to then develop the character and gave a lot of insight into who Sam Pickles was and his thought processes in this event. The theme of luck and chance was very clear and embedded throughout. The writing style was mirrored with the lack of quotation marks for the dialogue, and not a lot of dialogue tags like she said, he said, and just really looking at how that's formatted on the page as well and laid out on the page. Her language is very descriptive, just like Winton's is, and she used those colloquial terms throughout as well. Just as a reminder, you should be looking in preparation for the character that you're wanting to do. You should be looking at the 5 criterion of characterization. So you need to be looking through the book and really understanding how the character speaks. Look at descriptions of the character from other people. Look at their appearance and their clothing, because that's something perhaps you can bring into your own intervention to reveal more about that character. Comments made by the people, or even their own innermost thoughts and feelings. Can you draw upon things that happened previously and then build that into your intervention? And also look at the actions of the character, how they behave in other sections of the novel, to then really help with your own intervention. And this is why we recommend that you do read the whole novel, so that you get a complete understanding of who that character is, or who they develop to be, because you should be building on that and building that up as well to see who the end result is in the novel. When we talk about show don't tell, we're basically wanting you to appeal to all the senses and make sure you're using really descriptive language to show what is seen, what is heard, what is felt, what is touched, and what is smelt. So you really need to use your similes and your metaphors to do this, your personification, all those figurative language techniques, rather than just saying, you know, she arrived and she was cold and hungry. You can use adjectives, but it's still not showing what happened, it's only telling. So there are plenty of techniques that you can look up how to show and not tell to assist you in that. The best way is to look at how it's done in the novel and really try and mirror his writing style. Our suggestion to you is to draft an intervention before you get into your exam so that you are fully aware of all the writing style and techniques that you want to use throughout your exam.